conversation about mental health and mental wellness because this is an important topic for us to understand and know within the church. In the first service, I made this joke. And I can say this in trees that in Prebebre, near my femu, I was sorry no. I a frass of one. Emu bebre, I dream, I think, and some. I think a nimdia, a bit me, I think, it's young near man as we know what to do. We will help our presbyters. Somebody will call a pastor at like 3 o'clock in the morning because they're having a psychotic break. And they feel like the prayers of the pastor could solve the problem when all they need to do is go to the emergency room and get some antipsychotic medication and, and come back to baseline. Strategies I bet me I use to I bet boying when it comes to mental health.
Amen. Mpempino ene yebeka afa ya dwenimu apomudene ana apomudene efa onipa adwene ana niema ekọ so ewo asetene mu. Mpempino yetimi nya atenka bi ana se yetenka se bia bibi haye ni afrosofo bia homachen beye no miensa. Enso nanke nim ni ebetimi aya na anka osofo frɛ no enye ne kwanso no yebetimi akọ hospital ama oma kyerɛ ye ne yebe ya na oma ma yeduru a ebe bresa ade na se enti ene yeba beka adwenimu apomudene ho asem.
Now, as I'm saying that, I'm not saying that we should not call our leaders when we're in crisis. That is why they're there. But I'm just saying sometimes if we have the wisdom can guide us so that we can help the work that they're doing as well.
Doctor say on kasemen fro pastor now elder bi na mum enema ni bi wo ho a na enye sofo na sese wo frɛ no ka onim ne sese wo ya obekɔ bebi a sese wo kɔ.
And so because of that, we will learn some basic things about mental health today and how we can improve our overall mental health.
Enti ene yebeka adwunumu apomudene ho ne ahwɛ kwan a yebefa so na yenya emu nyansa a yebetimi akora yadwene mpomudene ho ye.
Can I get to slide number 3, please? Okay. So when we talk about mental health, I know sometimes within our local communities, when we're talking about mental health, we automatically think about mental illness. Those two are two different things.
Yeka adwunumu pomudene a ne yenka adwunumu yare nyese yeka so obi eka na adwene apomudene a enkyere se onipa no yare na adwene.
Now, if we don't take care of our mental health, it could lead us to developing mental illness.
Nenso si anhwe ya adwene apomudene ho asem yi a ebetimi ama yen enya adwene mu yade.
The same way, if we don't take care of our physical health, we can end up, having physical illnesses as well.
Sa na se anhwe ye hunamu asetena na ye hunamu apodin wa etimi me enya yare no sa nso na wa anhwe wa adwene mu apomudene ho a obetimi anya adwene mu yare.
And if you think about it, I think most recently, we've been hearing a lot about mental health. It seems like COVID opened the can for all of us to realize that this is something that is very important.
Senior Nansen yeti ho asem no ekire se ampa adesua bi a eho hia yi.
But those of us in the field, we know that it's always been important because we see people all day that report some of these difficulties.
Omo esua aniema anaso omo ye sa adwenumu apomde ho adwuma no omo de no omo nim se enye sesi anko na ehu hia na mbom ehu hia dada de bia ade a ehu hia ye pa.
And so when we talk about mental health, what do we mean? What is mental health?
Adwenumu apomde ni eno kra ne de ade.
Right. We think of it as an overall well-being, a state of overall well-being.
Yehwe ne se onipa wa apomu se ne wo honam nyina apomu etie.
Where every person, every individual realizes his own potential.
Obi biara etimi ehu na ho oden ana tumi bi a ewo ne mu.
And they also realize that they can cope with the normal stresses of life.
No otimi hunu se asetene mu abrabo ne ehu nsem nyina no wo ye nipa obetimi agina aho amasa niema yi.
And then they can work productively and also be fruitful. Meaning so okwa adwuma otimi ye de ese so ye wa adwuma efie nioma ese so oye wo fie otimi ye. And then they can also make meaningful contributions to their community. Oka ekuo hu anase baby a wote o family anase sorry oba sorry obo hu modie niema kinketenkete a it requires you to do in a community, you're able to do it. And so next slide please. And so when we're talking about mental health, these are things that we think about. Mental health includes our ability, right? Or our emotional wellness, our ability to feel like our emotional wellness is intact. And when we talk about emotional wellness, this is what we mean. Emotional wellness is your ability to understand your feelings, manage your feelings in an appropriate way.
Enti sa adwenumu apomudini ye be kyerɛkyerɛ nneɛma mmiɛnsa bi a edi akotene wom. Ne edi kan ene sɛ onipa wobenya watenka. Sɛ unya atenka na wobetimi ate watenka ase. Na wetimi akora no sɛ deɛ sɛ wokora no.
And then when we also talk about mental health, we're also talking about social well-being, which is how you relate to people, your relationships. How fulfilling are your relationships? How fulfilling are your connections with people?
Nyetosu mienu eye sɛnea woni nipa simidi nkita ho asifa beebi a wote omo ya wabusua wonuanom beebi a wo ya adwuma nkita ho papa ben na wotimi ne saa nipa no enya.
All right, and then lastly, we talk about psychological well-being, which is our overall mental health. And this includes positive emotions, finding a sense of purpose in life, finding a sense of purpose in your relationships, and also personal growth. That you as the person, if you think about yourself, you realize that you feel whole and you feel intact.
Yedi kan ye adwene anase trimopobia wo said ye nipa no sɛnea wo si dwene fa wo ho fa sɛ wo hunu sɛ ampa wo ye nipa preko pɛ na wo di mu anase nneɛma atwa ho ahyia no nyinaa ma wo tenka sɛ wo wie pɛyɛ.
Next slide please. And so when we're thinking of our mental health, we know that our mental health affects the way we think, feel, and act.
Enti yebetimi aka sɛ ya adwene mu apomudene ɛwɔ nsunsuaso wɔ kwan a yɛfa so dwene ana yɛyɛ nneɛma sifa.
Right. It also helps us to manage the stresses that we face in everyday life.
Ɛno so boa yɛn ma ewiase mu asetena mu nsɛm ne nea ɛkɔ so wɔ abrabom nyinaa yɛtimi kura no sɛ deɛ ɛsɛ sɛ yɛtimi kuta no.
Right. Sometimes you might see a person and you look at the choices that the person is making, and you know that something is not right.
Sometimes
obi aba sorry now share dressing nipan ebias enya sa no dress it, but that day no ba sorry no who say no ye ne nneoma utimi say something is not going on right with this person.
And so that kro bi no wen say tibia owom sa da no de bibi nkoyi utimi say bibi ha no.
And then lastly too, when we talk about mental health, we're not just talking about something that adults only go through. It is something that is important at every stage in our life, from childhood until the day we pass.
Sa adwuma pomdini yanka mampanifo nko a nemmom efiri yam mmofra bremu yeduru yababunu brem anase ebenyini obi biara onyame abɔ no biara no ɛfa sa asetena mu anase adwene mu pomdini mu.
Obi wɔ hɔ a sometimes no wohwɛ sɛ na ɔyɛ ne nneɛma sesia na wone ne kasa na ɔka kyerɛw ne story from childhood a wotumi sɛ choices bebree a ɔmmake sesia wɔ ne mpani mu no is from decisions and nneɛma will go through na ɔyɛ akwala. And so we really have to consider the whole picture when we're thinking about mental health. And so next slide please. So what is mental health good for? And I mean, again, it's something that we talk about all the time, mental health, mental health, mental health. When we have overall good mental health, we notice that we realize our full potential as people.
Nti adwene mu pomdini emfasode en ben kra na wom. Na ne edi kan se yenya ema yen ehu nea edua yemu anase nea yebetimi aye se onipa.
Into wow, who say yes, I feel whole. I'm nipankasa. Like you feel your spirit, your soul, and the body is connected.
So what you know apomudine edi akotene anase eya ewo mpempenso bi a what means ampa udi mu ewo unsunsum nyuma mu wapomudine mu ubi bia mu timi say ampa uye nipa udi mu.
And as I said, when we have good or healthy mental health, it helps us to cope with the day-to-day stresses of this country. We know that things are stressful.
So we will be what you know apomudine ekosoro anase di mu a ade asitire mu abrabo ne ebeto amane obiara no utimi efa so edi so emane ye.
And then your relationships are fulfilling as well. For those of us who are married, if there's stress in the house, you know that the marriage is not a peaceful place, right? Practically, if there's stress at home, it's not a happy marriage.
Boy and so my if me cry if ye nyina nim say so oti fie bi ana say wadwenu apomudin ana say wo stress ye friend stress ye bi wo so a otimi say niema entimi nkoyi wo awade mu kra so na niema entimi nkoyi busa.
And if you're also doing well mentally, you realize that you feel like you can be part of your community. You can be part of the church. You can work and do things and feel fulfilled.
Say we will be a wadwenu apomudin ewie pay a utimi and ya sorry ye bia utimi di ho edi mu bi ama wo ye mane ye fe.
And so don't worry about taking pictures. I can send the slides, and so we can all have the information with us as well too.
We are the doctor say obe chama obi bia ensan ka bi.
Okay, next slide, please. So what are some of the things that we know impact our mental health? And I'm not going to go over all of it. I'll just mention a few. Childhood abuse and trauma, especially those of us who have kids now. Sometimes if you think about your childhood and some of the things that you went through as a child, you start to shake because you know that that thing that you went through as a child has shaped who you are as an adult.
Nti niema ben sa na timi eha ye adwenu mu apomudene yemfa ye di kan bi ti se de eto wo nkolabrem niema bi timi to wo nkolabrem a utimi wa wohwa enne na wogina ho na wohwa utimi se niema bi a meye nenne no eye sa de na eto mi wo nkolabrem no enu nti na meye niema bi a etise
last time na me mami bi kasa na o ka kire me about the way onyi wo Ghana na o ka say na omote ekrase. Now, I cried no, there was no lights. Now, I say sometimes I'm not joke, so I may feel in Tema, or Bebana Yatu Prumo. Intina or da, she used to sleep in the alleys, right? In Grofo, FH, and all that. Now, no, because sometimes no, Nene Papankwana net, because not Nema immediately. Next, we also know the social isolation. Obia unko bebia utifi. Obia and share, obia and fra unkwa na uti apartment. It happens so often that people pass away in their apartments and nobody even knows that something happened to them. That can also impact our mental health negatively.
Ni tosu mienu ne ankonam obi a wa no ho ankonam ono kwa tini baabi obi mfre no omfre obi onu obi endi nkita ho sa obi kura timi tena ho sa na wewu a obi akora nim se wewu sa niema we nyina etimi ha ya adwene mu apomudene.
And like I said, I'm not going to go through all of them, but I'll pick some of the key ones that I think we should reflect on. If you're taking care of somebody who is ill, maybe a spouse, a parent, that in itself can cause a lot